Good evening. My clock shows 6 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. Announcement, all open sessions of the Board of Trustees are recorded and streamed in real time at fuhsd.net. We are at the Bob Burton Performing Arts Center, Fallbrook Union High School, 2400 South Stagecoach Lane, Fallbrook, California. We're going to be starting with a oath of office for the new appointed trustee. Ms. Garza Gonzalez, can you help us with the oath of affirmation?
Yes. Over here. Okay. Mr. James Dooley, if you could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, James Dooley,
I, James Dooley,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
If you could join me after that.
Trustee Dooley, if you could join us up here on the dais, please. All right, if we could stand, please, for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Roll call. Board of Trustees, Eddie Jones, President. I am here. Oscar Carlampio, Vice President.
Here.
Thank you. Paul Christensen, Clerk.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Jim Dooley, Appointee, District Area 1.
Here.
Thank you. And Area 2 is still vacant. Our student board representatives, Esperanza Bowen.
Here.
Thank you. Milani Thomas.
Here.
Thank you. And Superintendent Ilsa Garza Gonzalez.
Here.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to review the trustees' approved norms are that we be respectful, be approachable, be open-minded, be communicative with no surprises, be willing to listen, be prepared, be trustworthy. First step will be to adopt the agenda. I need a motion on this, please.
I move that the board adopts the agenda for the regular meeting of February 13th, 2023.
I'll second. Second.
Thank you. Motion by Carlampio, second by Mr. Dooley. No corrections? Okay, student representatives, Ms. Bowen.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Ms. Thomas?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Mr. Carlampio?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Jones says aye. Mr. Dooley?
Aye.
Aye. Area 2 is vacant. Thank you. Public comments. The Fallbrook Union High School District Board of Educators encourages and invites the public to comment on agenda and non-agenda items. Individual speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. Per legislation 1292, the board will give twice the allotted time for members of the public who utilize translation technology or require assistance to address the board. Total public input on any one topic will be limited to 20 minutes and may be extended at the discretion of the board president. Comments on non-agenda items will be heard at this time. Comments on agenda items may be taken now or when the agenda item is discussed by the board. Speakers will be called in order by topic and when their cards are submitted. Ms. Garza-Gonzalez, do we have any public comments?
We do, on a number of topics, some of them which will extend past the 20-minute mark. Our first speaker is Sandra Forrest. Noted. Our second speaker, Leticia Maldonado Stamus, Fallbrook a Leer Reading Family Literacy Project.
Good evening and congratulations, Mr. Dooley. I'm here to just give the board and the administration a quick brief update on Fallbrook a Leer, which is a family literacy day that we hold in the springtime. And its full title is the Fallbrook a Leer Reading Family Literacy Project, Cesar Chavez Day of Service and Learning. This will be our 19th year of conducting this event in Fallbrook, and it is 100% grassroots volunteer organized and implemented. I think it's important for the high school to be aware of it because it is the opportunity for high school students to provide community service for their community service hour requirements. When we started this in 2004, there were only 6 only 6 middle school students that helped. And we are now, as I said, in our 19th year with over 100 volunteers, of which 2/3 of them are high school students. And we could certainly have all of the students come from the middle school and the elementary school, 6th through 8th, but we feel that it's important that the high school students be given the opportunity to provide community service hours and to log those community service hours into their resume. So it is on April the 15th. Again, this is going to be the first time that we've had it in person after 3 years of virtual. And I think that's important to note because there isn't another community organization or event that took place during the pandemic besides Fallbrook a Leer. And we modified it, we put it virtually, it became a drive-through where parents would come and pick up their books in their backpacks. And that speaks to the dedication that all of the volunteers had, adult and student alike. The goal of Fallbrook a Leer is to encourage literacy in the home and again to provide opportunity for community service on the part of students as well as adults. But like I said, 2/3 of the volunteers are students. We invite the board to come and visit. We invite the board to participate as guest readers should they choose to do so. I can send the information to Dr. Garza-Gonzalez and she can forward that to you. But I think that if you experience this event as Oscar Caralampio has, and I think, Eddie, you might have been involved last year, I'm not sure, or maybe 2 years ago when we had the first drive-through, but it's an event that the entire community gets involved with. It's open to the public, it's free, it is space limited, so we ask people to register through their schools early. We've never had to turn anyone away, but we do have a limited number of books and backpacks that we give away to our students. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
The next topic is regarding teachers. We have 9 cards. That would take us to 27 minutes on that particular topic.
Okay, so that's if everybody speaks their full length. So let's go ahead, and we've got the order of that we received the cards, correct?
Correct.
All right, we'll keep a running total on the topic, and we'll see how far we get.
Tara Jenkins, Appropriate Books and Teachers.
My apologies. Last month I wasn't able to speak, and I wanted to say Happy New Year's, now Happy Valentine's Day. Congratulations to the new board members. Although, unfortunately, I have to start with some sad news. I am very, very disappointed in the board members who appointed Dooley. I'm sorry, Dooley, I'm sure you're a wonderful man. But saying that, the voters voted for a woman with children who had skin in the game. That was Courtney Hilborn. She is conservative. Kelly fits that match. She would have run, except for the fact that we didn't want to split the vote. We will push back, and you too, we will fight hard to replace you for not paying attention. I also want to request that you provide the emails. We want to know the exact number of emails that were sent to you in support of Kelly Hansen at the next board meeting, please. Also, I'm going to just talk about the teacher right now because I can get to the book next month if I have to. There are some teachers that we have heard that are from our community, not all of them, but even the ones who aren't. I would like to request that you guys pull their personal files and their evaluations to see why their contracts are not being renewed. Because unless they've done something very egregious, I don't understand why people who were grown and raised here and went to these schools are not an appropriate fit. And I think that needs to be answered in public, not just to me, but to the public at the next meeting. Since I have a moment, I will go into the books right now. Tonight, there's a lot of books I could go through, but tonight we're here about Beyond Magenta. I might also bring up Handmaid's Tale that's been being taught right now in one of your AP literature classes. That Handmaid's Tale happens to have a monthly ritual of raping in it, and many children are going to class and they have expressed to safe adults, they don't feel safe expressing at school, by the way, because one, they like their teachers and they don't want them to get in trouble. Two, they don't want to be singled out and called a bigot or a racist or phobic. So they don't feel safe at school expressing that they don't feel comfortable reading these books. And they feel like they're being taught another religion because it goes against their family values. And you need to understand that. And when a child doesn't feel safe, that's not okay. You also need to be reminded, apparently, of the mandatory reporter training. In Beyond Magenta, it has a section where the child says, when they were 6 years old, they were sexually mature. No 6-year-old is sexually mature. They have been groomed and possibly molested. When that book was written, somebody should have reported the story to CPS. And then that should have been followed up, because for all we know, the person who groomed that child is still out there grooming and molesting other children. And it's desensitizing and normalizing that behavior to our kids who now think that that's okay if somebody is that way.
Thank you.
Eric Bowen, Bruss termination.
First of all, I would like to thank all of you for your service to our community. I'm here this evening to express my concerns regarding the termination of Mr. Brust. In the absence of transparency on this topic, I can only express my opinions in the light of my experience. My impression is that this represents misplaced priorities and under-evaluation of the man, Nicholas Brust. Also, the role, which is very important to our community. To return potentially to an era where ASB is managed part-time by someone with larger administrative responsibilities and other priorities is a big mistake. Consider where we were just a few short years ago. Mr. Brust arrived on the heels of one of the worst failures of our educational system in regard to our children, the school system's response to the COVID emergency.
Bruss began the hard work of rebuilding and reuniting a student body who has now experienced a significant amount of their high school careers under the strain of COVID. In his short time here, I've watched him make steady progress. He's empowered and challenged his students to create a culture of accountability within the ASB itself. He understands that the leader's journey begins with you. He allows them to wrestle and to sometimes fail and gives them the freedom to try again. High school can be a formative time, but nowhere other than ASB do you get the opportunity to serve a community and lead them, to unite disparate interests towards common goals. For those who take on this challenge, it may very well be the most valuable leadership experience they'll take into their careers. In my professional world, if someone is not performing, they're put on a performance improvement plan. They're specifically outlined what they need to do to improve. Was such a plan implemented with Mr. Brust? If he were asked, if he brought up here today, could he clearly communicate why he was let go? If not, that's another failure on our part. As of tonight, you've chosen to disregard and abandon the progress that's been made. Instead, you're choosing to show the students and us, the larger Fallbrook community, you're not invested in this important aspect of community building and leadership development here at Fallbrook. And I personally hope this is not too late to be reconsidered, because this is a big error. Thank you.
Mary McBride, books and teacher. Aragon Elkins, teacher public comments.
Hi, my name is Aragon Elkins, and I'm speaking on behalf of Nick Bruss, the ASB teacher at Fallbrook High School. I'm a transfer student this semester, so I just started coming to Fallbrook this semester, and I was put in ASB to try and help other kids and help this school become more spiritual and more of a group together and a family. And Mr. Bruss has definitely helped that case, because obviously he's getting terminated, and I just wanted to kind of show it from a student's perspective, my perspective, and that is that the 1 month that I've been here at Fallbrook High School, Nick, or Mr. Brust, has always been very very helpful and always telling us what we can do to do things better, and he's always having everyone be more of a community, and I think that having him at this school, having him at this school will definitely help people become closer as a family, because the things that he does, he talks about leadership, and he talks about how important it is to be together, and he has helped, and I've seen it from the first games that I've been to, basketball games. There's not as much students, and then he tells us, let's go out, let's go tell more people to come here, and they do. And I've seen more kids, and I've been put into more groups and making more friends because of the things that he's been teaching me. And I just think that keeping him at this school would be a big, or taking him away from this school would be a big mistake, because he's helping my character, and he's helping me help other people's characters, and he's just an inspiration, and yeah, sorry about that, but thank you.
Harrison Jones, teacher public comments.
Hello, board. My name is Harrison Jones, and I'm here on behalf of Mr. Brust. I've been recently sad to find out that Mr. Brust will be forced to leave the school next year. From my perspective as a student, Mr. Brust has been nice and kind and respectful to all students and staff that attend Fallbrook High. He attends sports games and encourages us to cheer on our team, and he is always supporting the teams himself. And keep in mind, I think and see all of this, and I'm not even in ASB. I've been thinking about joining ASB for a while now, and from everyone I've talked to about Mr. Brust, they say he's nothing but nice and kind and fun, and they think that he's a great person to be around. And he teaches them leadership qualities that they need to succeed in life. I think he's a great person to be around, and he's a perfect man for this job, and losing him is a big mistake on behalf of Fallbrook High and the community, because overall, he really does affect students' lives, and he really does teach kids in the community, which is the most important thing, how to be a leader and how to teach other kids how to be a leader. And that's really something that we need in the community, especially right now. Sorry. If I can say all this without even being an ASB, I think anyone and everyone who took part in his termination is making a big mistake, and I think he's a perfect man for this job, and I think he should definitely be around for next year, because he doesn't do anything but help this community and teach the kids in the community how to be leaders and how to affect their peers. Thank you.
Taylor Sanchez, Brust public comments.
Good evening, everyone. Our names are Michaela Joya and Taylor Sanchez. We're seniors this year at Fallbrook High School, and we've had the privilege of being members of ASB for 2 years. We're both currently members of our ASB Executive Board, me being our official athletic commissioner and Taylor our senior class vice president. We're here today to talk about the mistake made by the members of our district to fire our amazing ASB director, Nick Brust. Being members of the board, we have grown close with Mr. Brust, and throughout the 2 years I've known him, he's a strong, resilient, caring, and charismatic leader of our school who cares deeply not only for the environment of his students, but the overall morale of the school.
We very recently went on a trip with the members of our ASB class to Disneyland. The night before the trip, we all received an email stating that Mr. Brust would not be going with us, and that instead another teacher would be taking us. While we were on this trip, we were told by other members of our class that Mr. Brust had been fired and would not be returning the next year. After hearing this, we immediately began discussing who we had to go to in order to fix this. This decision made no sense to us because of everything he has done for our school and his students. Mr. Brust's compassion for his students has gone unnoticed for too long.
This past October, I broke my leg, which prevented me from attending school for 4 weeks. Throughout those 4 weeks, Mr. Brust was in contact with me, checking up on me, and keeping me up to date on ASB activities. One of the first days back, he came to my practice after school and asked me a question that changed my entire perspective on how a teacher can impact a student. He asked me, "How is your mental health doing?" In my 4 years of high school, I've grown close connections with other teachers, but none have ever asked me that question. That in itself should show you not only the type of teacher he is, but the type of person.
Over the last few months, I had been having issues with some friends. He could tell that I had been upset by this, so he had constantly been checking in on me. He would take time out of his day to ask how I was. He checks in to make sure all of us aren't overworked and make sure we delegate to others if we are. He has become a teacher that I can go to for any problem or situation. He not only cares about his students' mental health, but also for the attitude and spirit of the student body.
Mr. Brust first came into Fallbrook as a teacher my junior year, and it was right in the midst of homecoming week, one of the craziest weeks and events we put on every year. Despite not knowing any of the students or plans already put into place, he showed professionalism that I personally believe other teachers would have lacked if they were put into the same situation. Knowing this, I knew he would be perfect for the job. In his short 2 years he's had here, he's made an impact that will last a lifetime, not only on me, but the students that have had the privilege of getting to know him. He's never failed to show up to every event we have ever planned, and he has sacrificed far too much to be treated this way.
Mr. Brust has used every opportunity to make our school better. He's created a student section that has never been seen at a school by all of our current students and many Fallbrook graduates. The student section alone has created more school spirit for our school than I have ever seen. My peers and I heard from Fallbrook parents about how much they love the student morale behind the players and how much it encourages them on the field during every game.
Thank you.
Julie, last name spelled G-I-O-I-A. If you could help me with the pronunciation, I'd appreciate it. Brust public comments.
My last name is pronounced Joya. I apologize, I'm not as prepared as some of these speakers. I only found out about this last evening. I 100% completely echo the beautiful words that this gentleman had to say about the teacher, Nick Brust. I'm here to respectfully request that the school administration reconsider the termination of ASB teacher Nick Brust. My daughter has been a student of his for the last 2 years. Under his leadership, she has blossomed into a confident student with a tremendous passion and love for school spirit. Prior to his arrival, her participation in planning events and class participation were fine, but under his leadership, she found so much more joy and worked so much harder to be involved and wanted to take on more responsibilities, especially in her senior year. I believe he's a great asset to Fallbrook High School, and I believe letting him go would be an incredible disservice to our school and especially our students. My daughter was on home hospital school for just over a month, and while all her teachers were understanding and supportive, aside from her home hospital teacher, he was the only other one that asked about her mental health. That meant the world to our family. The last several years have been so difficult for our students and their mental health, and it comforts me to know that teachers like him see the bigger picture when it comes to our children and situations like one my daughter faced. This is a little side note, and I hope it's appropriate, but I know that high schools in the area have had lockdowns and have had safety practices. It's an unfortunate reality that we live with today. This teacher sat down with these kids and told them he would do anything in his power to protect them in a situation like we had in Vista, where there were rumors, I cannot say facts, that teachers had abandoned their children. He promised he would never do that. He would protect them no matter what. He would keep them safe. Those are the kind of teachers we need, teachers who love these children and bring joy to them and help them become better people for this community and this school. Thank you for your time.
Michaela Joya, Brust public comments.
It's a continuation of our last one. Mr. Brust works hard to let our students hold events that our students believe would be a good addition to our school. He has helped us to hold pep rallies in the gym despite this incident that happened 3 years ago during our freshman year. He spends his time supervising our school events instead of spending time with his family so that our students can have the best possible high school experience. He has encouraged our class to go beyond our comfort zone in order to put on events that we will be able to cherish in our years after high school.
He has changed our school for the better in so many ways, and it will be a huge mistake to let him go after everything he's done. I respect everyone on this board and our administration, but I humbly ask that you reconsider your decision to not have Mr. Bruss come back next year, because I believe he's a great asset to the Warrior family and Fallbrook community.
We are both aware that this does not affect us because we're graduating this year. But we know that the overall well-being of our school will be best led by Mr. Bruss. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tara, and your books, teachers, and appointed seat. One moment, please. Legal counsel, are two public verbal comments cards from the same person on the same topic allowed?
Not on the same topic, and each individual should be limited to 3 minutes on a topic. So I don't.
Thank you.
Judy Willis just said she'd give me her minutes. Thank you.
It is the same topic.
Well, there are actually 3 topics, so that's not fair.
Ms. McNally?
Is the individual who identified that they concede their minutes, have they spoken? And what's their topic identified as?
The first topic was appropriate books and teachers. The second topic with a different last name is books and teachers and appointed seat.
And then the lady back here, what was your name again?
Yes, we would still be under the 20 minutes.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
All right. For those of you who are here tonight, seeing me speak the first time, I'm usually very mild-mannered, so tonight is not going to be normal. I don't like to be conflictual, but these are really important topics. I'm going to touch base real quickly again on the process of the appointee. I was very disappointed the meeting was held at 4 p.m. when most parents who would have came to support and speak for Kelly were busy picking up their kids from school or at work. I would ask if you ever do this again, you do it at the end of the general meeting so that we can have our voices heard. Plus 2 parents who did get here at 4:15 were denied access. And again, this is too important of a topic to stick to just only procedures and not allow people to hear their voice, especially when it's like 5 minutes difference and you're still interviewing, things like that. So that would be a call for improvement on this process, please. Now, the next part, I don't like talking this way, but you need to know it. Beyond magenta, profanity, derogatory terms, ass, 2 times, dick, 10 times, dyke, 2 times, faggot, fag, 10 times, fuck, 15 times, piss, 8 times, pussy, 3 times, shit, 9 times. This is appropriate by the 7 committee teacher to remain in our library. One other thing, you need to check out your Chromebooks. There's a program called EPIC, and there's probably some other ones. You need parent committees or concerned citizen committees to be looking through these Chromebooks and letting the parents know about these books, because just because you take it out of the library does not mean that it's out of the schools with the technology we have these days. And if you can't get it off the Chromebooks because it's somehow embedded in the system, you need to be sending out a letter to the parents with the books that are asterisked of being sexually explicit and requesting a opt-in, not an opt-out, to using these books. Because I bet most parents, if they knew and understood what were in these books, would not approve of them. I get that some would, so if they opt in, then great. It's a free country, and I'm all for that. Okay, mandatory reporter training. I just want to tell you some of the things that are on their slides. Sexual assault is any unwanted act or behavior which is threatening, violent, forced, or coercive, such as having a sexually explicit book in a Chromebook or as an assignment to read that's going to be tested for a grade, like Handmaid's Tale, which I told you talks about a monthly ritual raping. Let's see here. Number 1, on one of the slides, it says sexual harassment, making inappropriate sexual comments. Books can do that too. So these are just some of the examples. 2, this is in your teacher's mandatory reporter training. Why this book was voted on, I feel these teachers need to be talked to about what truly is acceptable sexually. I have more. Hopefully someday I'll be able to tell you to it.
Thank you.
Dave Baxter, library materials.
Good evening, trustees. And thank you guys for your service. Some of us, we do community together. For those of you who don't know me, I was elected in 2020 to the FPUD board and have a lot of responsibility associated with that. We sit on a number of boards, my wife and I, in the community. We love Fallbrook. It's awesome. The reason I come this evening to really speak with you guys, and by the way, ladies, thank you so much for being a student voice and representing the student body. That's very important, especially as you guys get older. Yeah, it's very, very cool. Actually didn't even know about the termination of Mr. Brost until I got here this evening, and I am going to have to dig into this and learn a little bit more. I only know Mr. Brost professionally, and as a professional outside of Fallbrook, ASB and some of the career things that we have talked about in professional development have been very important, and I've been very impressed with his professionalism. So a lot of people are asking for that to be reconsidered. Please do. But back on topic, we're learning about these books. Some people have been speaking about the books that are in the library and that are available to our students. As teachers and as educators, you guys have probably the greatest responsibility of anyone to our children. You guys are parents. You know what's going on, and you see all the stuff that comes in at them. There's so many inputs that they can't even possibly keep up. I can't keep up. And certainly as public servant, we have a lot of responsibility to our ratepayers and you guys, and you pay your water bills and do all the things that we need to do. But you guys ultimately have the greatest responsibility of anyone in our community because you deal daily in the lives of our kids. I wanted to specifically read something because at the beginning of May 2020, when everything was closed down, life's going crazy and everybody's got a different opinion on things. We couldn't go to church. We couldn't do some of the things that we needed to do as Christians in our family and kids. And we felt we had a responsibility to our children. So my wife and I started a church here in town. And we're not pastors. We didn't know what to do, but God said, hey, you got to take care of some people and figure out some things. So we did. And it led us over the last really, almost 3 years to learn better how to take care of our families and how to take care of our children and what really the Bible and God says about this. So real quickly, Jesus is speaking, this is in Matthew chapter 18. Jesus is speaking parables to his disciples, and he says, the disciples are asking, who's the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus says, I'll tell you the truth, it is a child, and unless we all become as children and humble ourselves, the child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. I'm going to jump down to chapter 6 and 7 seconds. Verse 6 and 7 seconds. But if anyone causes these children who believe in me to sin, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and drowned in the depths of sea. So please be responsible, you guys. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We're going to take like a 2-minute break for Oscar here.
The next speaker will be Stephanie Baxter, Library Materials.
So we'll just hold you for just a second until he gets back. Thank you. Hey, just for the next people speaking, I don't know why sometimes we have trouble with the acoustics here, and it seems like if you step back from the mic, like the last gentleman did, it's a lot easier for us to hear it. So maybe leaning in, it's louder, but we get an echo here and it's harder to hear. So thank you.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yes. Thank you, Board, for your service to our community. As the gentleman before, who happens to be my husband, spoke of, there is something deeper at work here. The rise in perverted material being taught in K through 12 classrooms, as well as being available on library shelves and Chromebooks, is both wicked and abhorrent. And so I ask where you are in all this. And based on recent actions, it's clear that you're actually encouraging this perverted material for our kids by consciously providing it to them. I suppose in your mind you want to be inclusive by having this book on your shelves, and I ask, who are you being inclusive of? This book and many other books that were mentioned earlier are against traditional family values, and you're actually putting sexual temptation on the shelf for their taking. It's our job as adults to be the protectors of these children, not to endanger their minds and bodies with perverted, vulgar, pornographic books. You were elected, respectfully, to make moral and ethical decisions on behalf of our kids. Removing the temptation of accessible pornographic material for our children is within your power. It is within your power. If you don't, what kind of message are you sending not only to the children, but their parents and your community? Are you encouraging sexual deviance and gender dysphoria? Are you discouraging traditional teenage inquisitions by leapfrogging their age-appropriate reading material to that of a sexually promiscuous and pedophilic adult? You see, there are literal evil forces at war for the minds and souls of our children. And in this season, you choose which army you're fighting with. Are you fighting to protect the minds and souls of these students? And if you are, will you agendize for these vile and sexually inappropriate books to be removed from your library and opt in for Chromebooks? If you don't, you've made it clear which side you are on. Also, based on the recent student testimony for Mr. Brust's termination, it seems like that is a grave mistake, and if it can be reconsidered, I deeply hope that you are able to do so. Thank you so much.
Susan Liebes, Book Censorship.
Hello again. I am here again tonight because I'm concerned about efforts by some to censor books available to students in this district's library. As Americans, we are guaranteed the right to freedom of speech and expression, and one individual or group of people, am I in the wrong place? One individual or group of people should not be able to limit students' opportunity to learn about diverse perspectives. Those who consider certain books to be inappropriate have the freedom to choose what their children read, but they should not be allowed to impose their beliefs on others. The board should not make a decision based on an individual book based on their gut and what makes them uncomfortable. They have to be thoughtful and consistent about the ramifications on First Amendment student rights, the rights of parents, educational opportunities, and how education strengthens democracy. Once you say one book isn't allowed, you open yourself to a lot more books your gut will say you shouldn't ban. High school is the age when kids can and should start learning and thinking about troubling, difficult, uncomfortable, and even controversial topics. They have parents and teachers to contextualize and explain difficult topics before they encounter them in the media. These books can help kids with difficult home lives navigate their life when the adults in their lives can't help them at all. We may not know why a student is interested in a certain book, but the important thing is they have a variety of resources available that have not been censored by a special interest group. Thank you.
Leif Hansen, Books in School.
Thank you. Beyond magenta, a bit much. We could talk about rights, freedom of speech, expression, but we're in school. We should be talking about educating and protecting the innocence of children. When it comes to sexually graphic content, and when I mean sexually graphic, you heard a little bit from Tara. 6-year-olds talking about giving blowjobs to adults, liking it. I don't really care what age we're in. If we could give this book to a pedophile and they would enjoy it, it does not belong in a public school. If I could read the book and it's talking about sexually explicit content of a young prepubescent child, and I can't have a penthouse forum in Fallbrook High School, then we gotta knock them both out, because there ain't that much of a difference. Whatever a child may be going through, pre-high school, elementary, junior high school, they may need counseling, talking to their parents, and that's what we have counselors, there's a lot of different resources. But having books that are so sexually explicit makes everybody who hears about it go, what, are you being serious? We always hear about this, it's somewhere else, but it's here now. I think we should run a test, just as a board, and quite frankly, I don't think the board knows every book in every library. I don't think you guys go, good, 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 not good, keep this one. I'm more concerned with the process, how it got in here. I think that you guys would rather be talking about many different other subjects. Apparently a teacher wants to go, things of that nature that matter. Nobody who reads this material in general goes, yes, I want this to be available to kids who, kids don't know anything without the counseling when it comes to high school, especially about their sexuality. They're developing. That's why their frontal lobe is, we need to respect that. I get it. If we have a book on our coffee table, and we have someone come over who we love and respect, and we want them to continue to love and respect us, if I would remove that book because they would think differently of me, does not belong in high schools. If you were sitting in the middle aisle, in the middle seat in a plane, and you open that up, you won't want other people knowing what you're reading. That means it doesn't belong in a school. That's it.
Kathy Lambert, Banned Books.
have some news that a lot of people here are not going to want to hear, but basically the truth is that book bans represent an unacceptable attack on the First Amendment freedoms of our democracy. Sadly, as long as there have been books, there have been people objecting to them and wanting them banned or burned, or in the case of Salman Rushdie, they want to kill the guy that wrote it. But during my 50 years in Fallbrook, there has never been the extreme nationwide pressure that there is now to remove books from schools, libraries, and classrooms. Since 2021, for some reason, well-founded, ideologically motivated groups have tried to force their religious zeal and political agenda on entire communities throughout the United States. In Fallbrook, they're currently trying to remove a couple of the books that are in our library, excuse me, of nearly 2,000 students. I also want to point out that these books are not part of the curriculum. They are not classroom materials. They are in the library. The people that are against this call themselves the Fallbrook Freedom Fighters, and they claim they are here to protect our babies in California. They are, quotes again, the prayerful resistance to tyrannical government overreach. In reality, the Freedom Fighters of Fallbrook is a group of far-right religious moms calling themselves patriots, trying to ban books that they do not like. This doesn't mean the rest of us should not have access. They quote the scripture and speak of loving each other while the actions of the group are anything but. They are fear-mongering, prejudiced, ill-informed, and discriminatory in every sense of the word. They are fighting primarily against perceived political enemies and anything having to do with LGBTQ. Beyond Magenta and Fun Home have been the two books picked for this particular assault. I don't know, that's not very transparent, I don't know if Beyond Magenta has been replaced on the shelf or not, but the truth is it's illegal to take the books off until they have been definitely determined not to be acceptable. Fun Home was actually critically acclaimed, national bestseller. They even made a musical out of it, and it was nominated for Tonys and a Grammy. If you get online, there's a CD that even has the music, and it was well acclaimed. And in fact, anybody who wants to teach it, there's a 34-page study guide also available. This group calls themselves the Fallbrook Freedom Fighters, but in fact, they are fighting against the freedom of students to read. They choose and even have a choice.
Thank you.
More later. Julie Willis conceded her time to Tara Jenkins. The next speaker is Kelly Hansen, Books and Library.
I'm going to defer my minutes to Lindsay Jones.
Lindsay Jones? Yeah. You can come up and speak. You can. You're listed as a non-agenda item.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Jones. I have the page Fallbrook Freedom Fighters. I just feel this is not a board. That's not a board thing to address you about, but I do feel the need to quickly defend the fact that we love all people. I have no issue against any of anything. So just FYI. Anyhow, Eddie, you and I had a really good conversation one time where I asked you, who do you serve? The public? Do you serve this town, Fallbrook, California, the students in this town? Or do you serve the government? You couldn't answer the question. I asked it to you several times and you actually walked out on our meeting. You were not happy with that question. And tonight, you demonstrated that indeed, you do not want to serve the public, because we had an opportunity to get a mother on the board who would understand where us mothers are coming from when we come up to speak about pertinent issues that affect our children. And we were really hoping that we would get somebody on the board that was a mother, like Kelly Hansen. So I'm very upset with that, but don't worry, Mr. Dooley, with all due respect, we will be looking to recall you, and that will be on the books sometime soon, so thank you for that. Anyhow, back in the 1990s when I was growing up, our parents and those in charge of us worried about music and MTV. Over-sexualization was prevalent in the media, but when we went to school, we learned about English, math, and if we learned anything in regards to sex, it happened from friends, not from teachers or hyper-sexualized curriculum. Our parents in schools did teach us, right? They made us aware of sexually transmitted diseases and how to have babies. And counselors and teachers were on hand if a child had any signs of being sexually harmed in any way. They stood by as mandated reporters and would work to support children who may have been raped or preyed upon sexually. We then collectively agreed that children were innocent and they should be taught how to do math well, have good writing skills, and become excellent contributors to society. That is what school is all about, right? The social and extracurricular activities are a plus, but ultimately we used to all agree that preserving child innocence was a priority, and also that we could all pull together our tax dollars to do our best to hire good teachers and good administration that we trust, to give our kids the best possible education so that
Mr. Arnold, could you start the clock?
Thanks. So that they could live out their version of the American dream. I understand that a book in the school library is not the end-all, be-all in education, and I will say that there have been books banned, and that happened in the 60s, and that book was the Bible. And since the Bible was banned, and we can't have proper discussion about things like the Bible or biblical things because crazy groups came in and got them out of our schools, look at society since. So actually, I'd love to have books not banned from schools, for the record. However, the fact of the matter is too many books lately are highlighting too much sex, and that was since 2016 with the California Healthy Youth Act, for those of you who need to know. That's why in 2021 people have been really worried about the hypersexualization of kids. This is a new thing, so you know. As a mom, a parent, and a public school teacher, I am concerned that Fallbrook High School would deem the book Beyond Magenta appropriate by a 7-person committee at Fallbrook. Here's an excerpt. I hope there's no kids. I told them to leave. I was sexually mature. What I mean by sexually mature is that I knew about sex. From 6 and up, I used to kiss other guys in my neighborhood. I would make out with them and perform oral sex on them. I liked it. I used to love oral when I was 6 years old. I touched their you-know-whats. I am wondering why this book is appropriate at all. As stated in her letter to me, Elsa Garza Gonzalez wrote, "The district believes that this decision is in the best interest of our students in their academic and personal development. I am not sure how a book about a 6-year-old giving blowjobs to his neighbors and enjoying it is quite in the best interest of students. I am asking the board to please consider my request to appeal this to you and reconsider this book as an option for the students at Fallbrook. I am asking this because I'm concerned about the hypersexualization of children. The APA says the hypersexualization of teens is particularly negative because their sense of self is still being formed. Sexuality is not the same as sexualization. Sexuality evolves in children as they develop healthy curiosity and growing understanding of their bodies when they become adults. Sexualization occurs when someone's sense of their own value is placed solely on sex appeal." This excerpt was taken from 2011 before the rise of TikTok, Instagram, and other social media sites that have influenced exponentially the sexualization of children. When we as schools add to the over-sexualization of children, we only add to the problem where children see themselves as sexual beings, and that is a huge social and emotional issue that I hope Fallbrook High School would be interested in combating rather than adding to. Please consider my request to have this book taken off the shelves at Fallbrook High School.
Kit Bacon Saracet on a non-agenda item.
It's Kit Bacon Gresset. It's a tough one. It's my parents' fault. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board on two topics: your reconsideration of library materials policy and transparency. And I'm going to race through this because I know I only have 3 minutes. I'm a 32-year resident of Fallbrook, parent of a former Fallbrook High student, host of an author and open mic reading series at Fallbrook Library, and I lecture in women's, gender, and sexuality studies at Cal State San Marcos, where many of our local students pursue their undergrad degrees. Topic 1, reconsideration of library materials. I'm appealing the removal of the from circulation of Fun Home, a family tragic comedy. The award-winning coming-of-age memoir has significant social and artistic significance, at times humorous, at others poignant. Fun Home can be accessible and validating for many student readers, regardless of gender identity and sexuality, and as they experience the challenges of coming of age and exploring their places in the world. For LGBTQ students, Fun Home can provide a critically important companion to the distinct challenges they face and struggle to overcome at Fallbrook High and as they venture into adulthood. Topic 2, transparency. I object to Fun Homes being removed from circulation in a manner, my computer is not performing, here we go, in a manner that was not transparent and consequently precluded public consideration and comment, student consideration and comment, and even seemingly Library Collection Evaluation Committee consideration and comment. This book banning is a symptom of an intensifying concerted campaign to censor certain books that scare the bloomers off certain people across the nation. Unfortunately, your current policy for reconsidering books does not require transparency. It says nothing about informing our community of book challenges, nor does it mention engaging our community in the free exchange of ideas about challenged materials. While some parents might find Fun Home, and I quote, disgusting and pornographic, and such disgust might be unpleasant for you all to address, excuse me, it is an important book for students in a number of ways. Many of my students at Cal State San Marcos bear with them from high school the traumas of unresolved bullying, rejection by family, peers, and teachers, and the resulting inner conflict that challenges their survival. As you might know, one bullied transgender student killed herself to escape the persistent harm she experienced at Fallbrook High. To ban these books is to harm these students. Please adopt a revised policy that makes the reconsideration process transparent and allows for consideration of the negative, damaging effects of banning books. Banning LGBTQ books should not be the legacy of your tenures on our board. It is a legacy we cannot allow. Thanks for listening. Please take action. Compassionate, well-informed action. And I brought copies of my request for reconsideration of removing books from...
Okay, so we're past the 20-minute mark on this. We have one more speaker. Do either of you object to listening to one more speaker? Okay, last speaker.
Sherry Ludwig, non-agenda item. Mr. Gray will bring the microphone to you.
Thank you. I was hoping that would be the case. You remember. Thank you so much.
Ms. McNally, she was not in the room when her name was called.
This is work by holding it away from you. All right. Good evening to everyone. Allow me to introduce myself. You know, my name is Sherry Ludwig. I've been in Fallbrook for 45 years, so I do have experience with the way things are run in our community. I'm a very happy participant. And I've also been a high school teacher as well as a community college teacher for 58 years. So I have an understanding of books and how they're secured and how they're used in our district and otherwise. I've also been a member of the school board for 8 years, and I am now a commissioner on the status of women for San Diego County. So I come to you with a lot of experience. But I wanted to share with you, how many of you remember your kindergarten teacher? Of course we do. I can tell you about my kindergarten teacher. I'll do so ever so quickly, with pin curls in her hair. She sat us on the floor. Her name was Ms. Peace. She sat us on the floor in a semicircle around her. And the one thing that she spoke about all year long that I remember is to read. Read, 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 read anything you can read. So I did. I read advertisements, I read comic books, and I also read the classics. And that's what I brought with me as a few props this evening, because the way I hear the conversation going, I suspect that there are people in this audience that would probably want to ban Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Or perhaps, based on the information included, they might want to ban The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Or they might want to ban The Last of the Mohicans, that deals with a portion of our history that they would rather erase. Well, I am here to tell you that as I continued my education, Ms. Peace was right, because the printed word is not the only way we get our life skills, yet it's a very important one, and one that deals with our history. Speaking of which, I brought that book as well. No, actually, if somebody could help me with it. It's probably as large a book. It's the Constitution. And I suggest everyone read Article 14.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mary McBride, if you could make your way to the podium. You're the last speaker. Will you be coming up to the podium? You're the last speaker. There is nobody to give the minutes away to.
Okay, thank you. All right, communications and reports. Start with reports from our student representatives.
Good evening. Tonight, I will not be giving you a report on student activities at Fallbrook. I believe my duty as the student voice on this board extends beyond that. Therefore, I feel obligated to declare to you that the student body has recently been robbed. We have been robbed of all the progress we've made this year in improving school culture and morale. We have been robbed of securing a solid foundation for future ASB students, and we have been robbed of our ASB advisor, Nick Brust. We've been robbed by you. As the president of the ASB program, I've built a connection with Mr. Brust as he helps me navigate my role. I've witnessed his dedication, hard work, and enthusiasm for the program and the entire student body firsthand on innumerable occasions. I know I likely have no ability to change the inconceivable decision to let him go. I know if he leaves, he will continue to do great things. What you don't know is the immense loss this is for our campus. This is the type of decision out-of-touch bureaucrats make, which has not been my impression of this body in my time as part of it. Post-COVID, returning to a semblance of normalcy has seemed an impossible challenge. You know this challenge. This year, it finally felt like a step in the right direction as ASB worked so hard to build connections between students. Mr. Brust was the motivating and regulating force behind it all, behind the student sections, pep rallies, dances, and so much more. Something I admire most about him is his ability to admit his mistakes and work to find solutions, a trait I'm learning the rarity of. I do not know what led to this decision. I'm inclined to believe it's a short-sighted budgetary decision, given that he's finishing the year with us. The money saved does not calculate the tremendous cost to the student body. It's not too late to rectify this mistake. I hope Mr. Brust does not leave Fallbrook, but if he does, I hope it's to a school that recognizes and appreciates his value, the value of dedication, hard work, enthusiasm, and solution-based thinking. Because of him, I understand the value of these, and also that of sacrificing my time for others, something he does every single day. The student body, the community, and the school deserve better than this. That's all. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm going to be presenting a small script. Congrats to Yesenia Renteria for being recognized as our Student of the Month for February. Well deserved. We would also like to congratulate our 15 seniors who will be graduating this Friday. We are so proud of you. A job well done and a bright future ahead.
All right, reports from board members. Paul, can I start with you and we'll work down this way?
As far as my report goes, I hear the public and the comments about books, teachers, different situations. I commend all of our students and representatives for speaking up as a parent and as a father, husband. I know that getting up and speaking up for your family is difficult on a podium in a position like this, but especially for students to step up, come to a board meeting and voice their opinion. I think that's a very special and incredible opportunity for them and shows their maturity and discretion to have their voice heard. Furthermore, as far as some of the topics being discussed, these are not new topics. These are topics that are being discussed in the background. They are things that are noticed from both sides, good, bad, or indifferent. There is open conversation and dialogue, and that I think is one of the most important things of the school board, is to be open to each side and have proper discussion. So, you know, I've been happy to see the public comments and how everybody's involved, and I think that's part of being in you know, Fallbrook. That's why it's called Smallbrook. We have a small, tight-knit community that wants to work together and have the best opportunity for our students and the best educational opportunity for success for our students. And ultimately, this position is about success for our students, supporting the parents, the teachers, the administration. And as far as my position, I think that all of these comments that were made don't go unnoticed, and they're not unheard on either side. And it will continue to be a discussion. Unfortunately, there are decisions that get made that makes one side happy and another side unhappy, but that is part of the learning lesson as well. So thank you for everybody that spoke tonight, all the candidates as well. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. You know, in a way, I want to say really exactly what Paul was saying. I know it might be hard to believe, but I appreciate everybody that stepped up to the microphone today and did what they had to do to give us their opinion. Yes, just like Paul said, there are differences of opinions. There's different people are on different sides of a lot of these topics. None of these are easy. None of these decisions are easy. And I appreciate everybody speaking, both as a candidate earlier in public comment. So I want to thank everybody for the courage to do that. The only other thing I would just want to talk about, I had an opportunity. They had essentially event here at school earlier in the week where they brought incoming freshmen in. And I want to say thank you to all the staff and the elective teachers that really made that special. I think it was called the Warrior Showcase. Thank you. Some particular classes that really stood out. The ag department had some really wonderful demonstrations. The people over there, that's really a first-class ag department. ROTC also had a really good showing and put on good demonstrations, as well as our culinary. We had some students that were in there making some really good recipes and things like that. So I want to, everybody that was involved on getting that event off, I want to thank them for that. So thank you.
Yeah, I want to echo what my colleagues have said here. I just want to thank everybody who came and spoke, and I want to give a lot of kudos to the students who came and spoke on behalf of their teacher. Ms. Bowen, way to step up and use your position. And again, you know, these are candidates, these are topics that are really hard and sensitive. But as a teacher myself, having kids come up and speak in front of a board for something they're passionate about is something that I must respect. And again, kudos to y'all for coming up and speaking.
I'm glad to see so many people here. I've been to a few board meetings, and I think there are more people here tonight than in the several board meetings I've been to before in total. So it's good to get input from the community. Being new to the board, I'm not going to make any conclusions, but I appreciate the input. I was able to attend a girls' basketball game last week, which I enjoyed. It was senior night, and one of the students was an AFS student from Italy, and being senior night, she was accompanied by her parents and recognized, and both of her parents are teachers, one of them at Fallbrook High. So they were not able to win the game. They had a good game, but the other team was a little better. Next time, maybe. Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to our report from our superintendent.
So as President Jones mentioned earlier, this past Saturday we had a successful Freshman Warrior Showcase where the class of 2027 had the opportunity to learn about and engage in many of our enrichment programs. Over 200 students were in attendance with many of our enrichment programs here, giving them hands-on experience. I'd also like to congratulate Ivy High School and Principal Michael Gray for exiting Comprehensive Support and Improvement, commonly known as CSI, for increasing their graduation rate at Ivy High School. This is an accomplishment that reflects the hard work and dedication of the Ivy staff, and we hope to recognize them in the near future. We were also notified that due to our student group performance, specifically our English learners and our special education subgroups, we will be participating in differentiated assistance. DA is a collaborative formal process designed for district leaders and the county to partner to improve system outcomes and eliminate equity gaps for students. Our first differentiated assistance session will occur in the coming weeks. And finally, I would like to welcome Trustee Dooley to the Fallbrook Union High School District Board of Education.
Thank you. Now we move to a public hearing session. This is on our waiver application to the California Department of Education. This is essentially the other seat, the other vacancy, seat 2. which has been open for a considerable amount of time. We need to get a waiver to continue to do that. So, that being said, notice given that on February 13th, the Board of Trustees of the Fallbrook Union High School District will conduct a public hearing regarding the district's proposal for application of waiver to the California Department of Education. The public hearing session for the waiver application to the California Department of Education opens now at 7:20. Are there any verbal comments on this topic?
There are no public verbal comments related to this public hearing session.
Thank.
They're removed after public verbal comments. Would you like to speak on the public hearing? Okay.
Just before, is anybody else want to speak on this topic, specifically public hearing for the extension on the state of California? Okay, come on up.
Tara Jenkins for the record.
Try talking again.
Is that better? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for letting me speak. It's my understanding from talking to other school board members, 20 years plus from other districts, that it's not a state law, you can correct me in the next meeting if I'm wrong, that you have to have these area trustees. There was a lawsuit brought against you guys. Apparently the person doesn't even live in the area. And to avoid that lawsuit, people settled outside to, to these trustee areas, which I think are actually a great idea to have areas specifically represented. Unfortunately, we kind of learned the hard way that Area 2, being mostly military, you have a lot of folks that don't even know if they're going to be here in 4 years, 6 months, and they also keep their state residence elsewhere for probably tax purposes or whatnot. So I'm wondering, I don't know the waiver process exactly, but I just want to say, one, thank you for doing that, and two, are you able to open it up to all Fallbrook Area 2, and then maybe in the next 4 years redraw the Area 2 line somehow to include more than, or redraw all the areas, obviously, because otherwise I think we're going to continue to keep having this issue. That's it. Thank you.
There are no other public verbal comments.
All right, thank you. We're closing the hearing session at 7:24. Agenda item number 1 is an informational meeting. This is for revised board meeting calendar. Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes, Mr. Arnold, could you put the presentation up? Thank you. Next slide. So at the January 24th, 2023 regular board meeting, Trustee Christensen requested that I research and present an informational item on the possibility of revising the board meeting calendar to reflect meetings once a month. The rest of the board was in support of the request. Currently, our meetings are held twice a month on the second and fourth Monday, with the exception of the month of July. Next slide. So the research that I did across San Diego County school district, these were the school districts that responded, and my question was, do you hold one meeting a month? The schools that responded were the following, or the school districts: Alpine, Bonsall, Grossmont, Jamul-Zura, Julian Elementary, Mountain Empire, Oceanside, Ramona, and San Marcos. So as you can see, there are both small school districts as well as larger school districts that have moved to a one meeting a month. I think it's important for the board to consider that when we reduce board meetings to once a month, there is an increased number of special board meetings that may arise if the board is required to take action, and that action is urgent. Board meetings may go a little longer since we are going to have a longer agenda. We will require 2 board meetings during the month of June, as we will have to approve the LCAP as well as the annual budget report, and both of those items require an informational presentation in June, followed by an action item. Many times, especially when it comes to students participating in competitions, they have to go on overnight field trips, and overnight field trips have to be approved by the board prior. With 1 meeting a month and not knowing if our students have qualified or not, it may be necessary for the board to ratify field trips as opposed to approving them ahead of time. If you are considering moving to 1 meeting a month, it would also be beneficial to move our meetings from Mondays to Wednesdays. And the reason for that is, in the past, we have had community members request that we change our schedule, our board meeting schedule, so that we are not meeting on the same night as the elementary school district, because for parents who have children at the elementary and the secondary, they have to decide which board meeting they wish to attend. By moving to Wednesday, we no longer will have a conflict with the elementary school district, and we will also not have a conflict with Vallecitos, which is our other feeder district. In this way, interested community members can attend all meetings. Also, even though I am recommending that if the board decides to move forward, that we hold our board meetings on the second Wednesday of the month, because the PAC, the Performing Arts Center, has already been booked a year out. There are some months where the board meetings will have to be held either the first or third Wednesday of the month. So the next step for the board is, if the board desires to move forward, I will work with the board president to agendize the matter as an action item. Before the calendar revision comes to the board, we do have to revise board bylaw 9320, because it states that our meetings are held on the second and fourth Mondays. And the board would vote on the revisions to the board bylaw and then on a new calendar of meetings. So it's not something that will have been immediately, but again, if the board wishes to move forward, it would be accomplished probably within the next 2 board meetings. Are there any questions?
Question, the bylaw change, 9320, is it possible to have that in the same meeting as a schedule change, so that would get approved and then later in the meeting we would be able to do it?
Yes.
Thank you.
And just for reference, I believe the Bonsall School Board, Bonsall Elementary, is the 3rd Wednesday of the month, I believe.
I believe that Bonsall is on Wednesdays, but because they're not a feeder district, we were concentrating on the districts where students come directly to us. But yes, they are on the 3rd Wednesday. So we would, for the most part, avoid conflict with Bonsall, except for the dates where the PAC is already booked on the 2nd Wednesday.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
If a special meeting is needed for approval of field trips or for other reasons, how much notification would we get, and how would that work?
For a special meeting, we are required to post the agenda 24 hours in advance. Correct, Ms. Hatcher?
That is correct, and it is very specific as to what we can put on a special agenda. So it would only be certain items that we could put on a special agenda or call a special meeting to.
And to clarify, even with 2 meetings a month, again, because the way that athletic competitions and agriculture competitions occur, there have been other instances, even with 2 meetings a month, that the board has to ratify the field trip as opposed to approving them ahead of time.
All right, thank you. Number 2 is also informational. This is revised new deleted board policies and administrative regulations. Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes, so ongoing reviews and updates are necessary with board policies and administrative regulations. As I just mentioned, if we change the meeting dates, we would have to revise a board bylaw. The review enables the district to ensure the policies, regulations, and exhibits and bylaws conform to state and federal law. The district compares its policies, regulations, exhibits, and bylaws with the California School Boards Association recommendations. Additionally, the review serves as a reminder to the governance team and staff of the operational principles and implementation guidelines for the district. The revisions allow the district to make the necessary updates to remain compliant. The revisions are in alignment with CSBA's suggested language and numbering system. The revisions will appear as a strike-through for deletions and as an underline for additions. There are no financial implications associated with this agenda item. Implementation of these proposed revisions should support district efforts to help students attain the goals identified in the LCAP. The revised, new, and deleted board policies, administrative regulations, and exhibits presented are informational items for first reading and will be placed on the next agenda for action.
Number 3 is an action item. We'll need a move to start this. This is a revised, new, and deleted board policies and administrative regulations.
I move that the board approve in the second reading the revised, new, and deleted board policies and administrative regulations as presented.
Okay, I will second. Carlampio and Jones. Any discussion? All right, student representatives, Mrs. Bone. Ms. Bone.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Ms. Thomas?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Mr. Carlampio?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Jones says aye. Mr. Dooley?
Aye.
Thank you. Area 2 is vacant. Passes 4-0. Number 4, this is resolution number 09-2223, authorizing the application request for the State Board of Equalization for a waiver of state law related to board vacancies. This is an action item again.
Yes, so the district.
Do I need to move first?
Yes, you do. Sorry.
So if we can get a motion and a second, please.
I move that the board approve resolution number 092223, authorizing the application request to the State Board of Education for the waiver of state related to board vacancy as presented.
Christensen will second.
Thank you, Mr. Carlampio, Ms. Christensen. Ms. Garza-Gonzalez.
Yes, so the Fallbrook Union High School District was notified that no candidates filed to run for election in 2022 to fill the open seat on the Board of Trustees in Trustee Area Number 2, thereby creating a vacancy on the board. A vacancy created by a failure to elect must be filled by appointment prior to the election. After providing notice of the vacancy and soliciting qualified candidates, no applications were received. As a result, no candidate could be appointed by the board by the statutory deadline. The board is now considering applying to the State Board of Education for a waiver of the appointment timelines to provide the district additional time to seek a qualified applicant for the open seat. As required, the district has consulted with its bargaining unit representatives in the formulation of the waiver, as well as with the appropriate councils and committees regarding the waiver request, and no organization expressed opposition to the district seeking the waiver. In addition, a public hearing was held on the issue of seeking the waiver. Further details regarding the process are contained in the attached resolution. Although it states that there are no financial implications associated with this agenda item, Not seeking a waiver would require that the board move to a special election, which would have a pretty impactful financial burden on the district. There is no direct alignment with the LCAP, and I recommend that the board adopt resolution number 092223, authorizing the application and request to the State Board of Education for a waiver of state law related to board vacancy as presented. If approved, it would go to the State Board of Education in their May meeting.
Thank you. Any questions?
I do have a question. If, with this waiver, at any point, if somebody was to apply or speak interest, or is there an action item that gets brought to the board as far as somebody that does apply and is interested in that position based on maybe they just moved because it's the majority of Camp Pendleton?
So if we receive an application, we would not be able to move forward with an appointment until the state board grants us a waiver, but having an application on file actually makes our case stronger before the State Board of Education.
Thank you.
All right, call for the vote. Ms. Bowen?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Ms. Thomas?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Carlampio?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Jones says aye. Mr. Dooley?
Aye.
Aye. Area 2 is vacant. Thank you. Business Services, presentation. The board is going to hear a presentation from our auditors. Ms. Meffert, can you introduce our auditors?
Yes, this evening we have Mr. Andrew Park from the independent auditing firm Ide Bailey, and he's going to present the 21-22 financial audit as well as the 21-22 Measure AA bond audit. Mr. Park.
Good evening. Is this working? Okay, perfect. Well, good evening. Great to see you guys again. Tonight I'll be starting off with the presentation of the annual audit. Okay. Hopefully you have the booklet in front of you. That's the main audit report. We call this the annual financial audit of the school district. So I always start off in terms of what we do for mainly the board. We're basically what you would call a financial statement auditor. We're not here to look for fraud. We're not here to look at your budget. What we do is we use an objective basis. And what is that objective basis? So many months ago, and it's been a while, but around September, you were presented with the information called unaudited actuals. That's your overall financial statements, and at that point in time, it was unaudited. My job is to come in, audit the information, and report back to the board in terms of how the audit went, okay? So again, this is the audit report. This is a technical document, and there's really no expectation for you to read this and fully understand this. As a board member, the fastest way to get an idea in terms of how the audit went is to refer to a page called Summary of Auditor's Results. And that will be on page 90 of the audit report. I'm going to wait until everybody flips to that page.
Can you repeat the page number again?
Page 90. Okay, looks like everybody's there. So as you read the header of the page, it literally is called the Summary of Auditor's Results. When you go through the bold-faced items on this page, we actually opine on 3 areas. I did mention that we opine on the overall financial statement. Secondly, we also opine on the district's compliance with federal regulations. When you're subsidized, there's strings attached and you have to comply. And then lastly, on state compliance. So just like attorneys, you have your legal counsel here, we render an opinion when it comes to an audit. And we provide varying levels of assurance, okay? Highest level of assurance being an unmodified opinion, followed by a qualified opinion, and lastly, adverse or disclaimer. That's not something you want to see on any report, okay? So again, unmodified is basically synonymous with a clean opinion, if you will, okay? So I'm going to go through each of the results using those terminologies, and then just kind of go through each of the 3 sections in terms of how the audit went, okay? With respect to the financial statements as of June 30, 2022, again, this is for 21-22 fiscal year, our opinion was unmodified, okay? This means that based on the audit procedures that we perform, we believe that the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects, okay? During the course of the audit, we're looking at a lot of numbers, but the underlying procedure that we perform is actually looking at the procedures behind all the number generation, if you will, right? What does that exactly mean? When you put in a number in a system, does that number, let's say it's $1, does that dollar get reported as a dollar? This is what we would call internal controls or checks and balances, okay? And that's, I would say, about 60% of our time that we spent evaluating, testing, consistency and the application of those procedures in place, okay? Again, this is what we would call internal controls. So moving on to the second item there, related to internal controls over financial reporting, we talk about material weakness and significant deficiency. We did identify a slight flaw in the district's internal controls as it relates to financial reporting, very clearly financial reporting, not operations, okay? And hopefully you had an opportunity to review the details of that in the following pages. Moving on to the federal awards, so just to kind of give you some background in terms of what triggers a federal audit, and this is basically what we would call uniform compliance requirement, okay? This audit requirement is triggered if a non-federal entity receives in excess and spends in excess of $750,000 annually. I'll tell you right now, Fallbrook Union High School District spent way more than that. And as a result, it was subject to what we would call a single audit requirement. This is a requirement by the federal government. During the current year, we were required to audit your child nutrition cluster. This is your meal subsidy program. As you know, all the kids received, free meals during the past year, and I do believe that's still ongoing. And much of that has been subsidized by the feds, and we were required to audit it. And secondly, we were required to audit your Education Stabilization Fund. In case you're wondering, I'm sure you've heard the terms ESSER and GEAR quite a bit recently, okay? Those are the stimulus money that was provided to many of the governmental entities recently. So based on the audit procedures that we performed on 2 of these programs, our opinion was unmodified. Again, clean opinion, with respect to the district's compliance with these 2 requirements. We also did not identify any deficiencies and internal controls or checks and balances that are in place to ensure compliance with these 2 requirements, okay? And lastly, state compliance. So state compliance is kind of a unique area in terms of what we audit. And if you could refer to page 86 and 87. So there's a lot of regulatory requirements, and as far as what my responsibility is, it's a set of requirements that are required to be audited. And it's basically governed by your California Department of Education and your state controller's office. These are all the programs that we're required to audit, okay? So when you look on page 86 and 87, you're gonna see some yes notations and no notations. Yes notations mean that we did perform the audit for these procedures, because it was either applicable to the district or the district received funds. No notations mean that it doesn't apply to the district or the district did not receive any type of subsidy from the state, and as a result, there were no strings attached, basically. Based on the procedures that we performed on all the yes notated programs, our opinion was unmodified with respect to the district's state compliance requirements, okay? That pretty much summarizes how the audit went. Any questions? Just to reiterate.
Not for me.
Unmodified opinion across the board, again, synonymous with clean opinions. There were some exceptions related to internal controls.
None for me. Paul? Also looking?
No, I have nothing for it.
Mr. Dooley?
So the conclusion is we're okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
So within the scope of academia, the district passed, with an exception.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh. Okay, you want me to just continue with the Measure A bonds?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yes, please.
Sure, I'll make this one really quickly. So this is what we would call a Measure AA performance audit. So this, oh, yes.
I jumped the gun. I need to read something to get us to there, please. Thank you. Okay, so
We need a,
we need to vote, or do we?
we need an action before moving on to the next audit report.
Okay, so we finished presentation. That was number 5. Now we're on to action item number 6. This is the audit report. And we need a motion.
I'll motion for the action that the board approve the audit report as presented.
I second.
Because okay, so we've got a motion and a second on the audit, which is the first one you just went over. Any questions, and then we can vote on accepting the audit. Ms. Bowden?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Thomas?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Carlampio?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Jones says aye. Mr. Dooley?
Aye.
Aye. Area 2 is vacant. Okay. That brings us to
The second report.
the second report.
Second presentation.
I don't see a second presentation. Okay, I'd like you to give us a presentation on the bond report, please.
Sure. It'd be my pleasure. So I'll just do this one really quickly. So bond performance report is actually a 2-part report. First half is basically a financial statement audit. Second half is what we would traditionally call a performance report, otherwise known as a compliance or compliance report, basically. First half of the report basically is a set of financial statements that are basically a specific pocket of where the bond funds are held. We call this the building fund. And again, I'm not going to get into too much of this, but just kind of using the same terminology that I used for the audit, our opinion was unmodified with respect to the bond funds that are housed in the district's financial system. Okay? We believe that the information related to the bond funds, Measure AA in this case, was fairly stated in all material respects. Now, just so you know, it looks like your bond activity is going to ramp up quite a bit, right, Ms. Mefford? I do see the 24 million coming in, or I did see it, the 24 million coming in during the 21-22 year. So we do anticipate a lot more activity. Moving on to the second half of the report, this is what we would call a performance audit. Again, what exactly is that? So we have a very specific purpose when it comes to a performance audit, okay? We answer the question of, did you do something, yes or no, okay? In this case, when we're talking about bond funds, the voters have approved a specific ballot measure intended for very specific purpose. We basically audit how the district spent those monies, proceeds, and answer the question of, is it aligned with the ballot measures that the voters have approved, okay? Yes or not, no type of questions. There's no maybe, gray area. It's either you spent it or you didn't, okay? To give you some statistics, we sampled approximately $7.1 million out of almost $8.5 million, which represents 84% of the total expenditures spent during 21-22 fiscal year. Based on the audit procedures that we performed, we believe that the district had spent all the proceeds in accordance to what the voters have wanted. We really don't have anything to report. Now, as far as this report is concerned, if we have findings on this, it's going to be generally egregious, right? You don't generally make a lot of mistakes on this. So, I mean, you shouldn't expect a finding. If you do, then you should be asking the questions in terms of how that happened. Okay. That's pretty much the end of it. Any questions on this?
None for me.
I do not.
All right, thank you. That brings us to action item number 7, which is to vote and approve on the bond audit report.
I move that the board approve the bond audit report for the fiscal year 2020-21 as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Carlampio. Ms. Jones, I will second that. Any discussion or questions? Bowen?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Thomas?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Carlampio?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Jones says aye. Mr. Dooley?
Aye.
Thank you. Area 2 is vacant.
We do have a public verbal comment for the next item, so before we actually open it up for action, I would like to invite Sandra Forrest to address the board. And Mr. Arnold, that will be 3 minutes again.
Good evening. Can you hear me? I could use my teacher voice. Got it? Okay. First of all, there is a proposal that certain areas of the Citro development out by Horse Creek Ranch, the division lines between the districts, they have it so that you might be on one side of the street and go to Bonsall schools, you might be on the other side of the street and go to Fallbrook schools. Those borders were drawn back when it was a lemon grove. And I don't know, I mean, Citro was Meadowwood for a long time, and it is beyond my comprehension why it needs to be 2 different school districts down in that area. It should be all Fallbrook Elementary and all Fallbrook High School. Now, the proposal is just on the boundaries, but my concern is you need to vote against this because it needs more information. If you vote against it, it doesn't mean that you're going to make the kids on different sides of the street go to different schools. What it means is you can table it to another meeting so that there's more information available so that more questions can be asked. The developers are pushing this. I mean, who is calling the shots here? They drew the lines. They're the ones pushing for this. Bonsall shouldn't be getting any kids. They should all be coming to Fallbrook High School. There's a feasibility study that the elementary district put out about facilities report for all the district schools. They paid $200,000 for that, and they tabled it because of COVID. That report still needs to come in, and it involves all the feeder districts. You need to wait and vote on any of this until after that report comes in. The Fallbrook Union Elementary District voted for it, and a lot of the board members, they didn't even know that this feasibility study's coming in. The information was not presented or available. It's a steamroller job here. I even went on the website, and they're touting, oh, you're going to have an elementary school where your little children can ride their bikes and walk to school with their friends. Folks, it's not a Melrose. They're not going to be paying a dime for a school that has to be down there. They're not setting aside any money for it. And why in the world should any of those kids go anywhere else besides a Fallbrook school when there's plenty of room here at the high school for all the kids? It's ridiculous. And you need to investigate who's calling the shots here. Why does it have to be a rush job right now? Maybe they need to get new brochures printed, like this one right here. It's on their website. Do they need, is the printer pressing them to get their new brochures for their salespeople to hand out? That's a big push for their development, but it's not appropriate.
Thank you. Number 8, action item, resolution 10-2223, Citro territory transfer. Need a motion on this, please.
We'll go ahead and motion.
All right, Jones, I will second it. Ms. Mefford, can you introduce our speaker in regards to this?
Yes, this evening we have Miss Carolyn Brown from the consultant agency of EHNA MGT. She has been working with Fallbrook Union High School District, Fallbrook Union Elementary District, and the Bonsall Unified School District on the Citro territory transfer.
Good evening. Good to see you again. Since we last met, we have adjusted the petition that you have in your packet to include the updated number of units and their status of whether they're vacant, under contract, or occupied. And we've also gone into greater detail of how the developer fee distribution will be between the three districts, and a commitment to continue to work collaboratively with each district on any interdistrict transfers associated with any students that might want to transfer to another district. We had met with the Fallbrook Elementary School District, and they passed the transfer and the petition and the resolution. And then on Wednesday, we have the Bonsall second reading and consideration of approval for that. Once the approvals are collected, the packet will be submitted to the county superintendent, and then they will go through their effort to approve or disapprove, hold their public hearings, and do that for this territory transfer. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Is there a vacant 13 acres of land in that territory that is being promised to be used for a school?
If you drive the territory, you'll see on Horse Creek Ranch Road, there's an 11-acre parcel that is designated in the specific plan to be a school if the school district, which happens to be Bonsall, decides to acquire the property and to build a school there. The property was always split between the districts. The line went through and separated the districts about 50% in Fallbrooks and 50% in Bonsall. And this territory transfer is to make it so that homes aren't being split by the line that was done when districts were formed back hundreds of years ago. And then, and to make it so students that are living across the street from each other go to the school district, the same school district. So it's a little bit more continuity for families that are residing in these areas. If we do the transfer now, it'll be prior to many of the homes being sold to families that when you buy a home, you're disclosed what school district you're in. If we can get the territory transfer done prior to homes being occupied, then people can make educated decisions about what school they're going to be in when they're considering purchase.
So that land will go to Bonsall. Would that be for elementary, high school? Not sure.
You know, I'm not sure. They haven't finished their facilities master plan, and they haven't determined whether they're even going to acquire it yet. If it does not get acquired, it will turn into 42 units that are pre-approved by the County of San Diego.
So the property you're speaking of, Bonsall owns, if they develop a master plan that doesn't include a school, correct? It would go to 42 units that are also now included in the Bonsall School District.
Correct.
Correct. And those lines have been established, whether it's a lemon grove, an orange grove, those lines were established long ago. We've corrected those lines to be a little more uniform, showing, rather than cutting straight through homes, we've kind of tried to isolate one side of the street versus another. And as far as the record, you know, there is a concern for a lot of families when they buy a house of what school district they are in. I understand identifying these lines helps make or break which side of the street they might live on. That being said, there is an accessibility for students to transfer, that it seems to be a much more open process and easier process for students to transfer. So if my son was going to school in Bonsall because he's on this side of the street, but his best friend across the street is going to Fallbrook, there can be leeway to swap. But as far as the boundary lines, it's more of a tax implication based on where that house lies. Their property tax, their home would be utilized toward that district, correct?
Yes, yes. And I think that each of the three boards have interdistrict policies and have worked together collaboratively over the last number of years and are committed to continuing to work collaboratively with families on a case-by-case basis. As far as the boundary lines go, they were set in early on in California by California Department of Ed, and then they're geocoded by people that do geocoding, and then they're given to the county tax assessor, and then that information is provided to districts so that districts can know which properties are in their district. And then development happens. Roads go through, there's realignments of roads, there's circumstances that no one would have thought of back when the lines were drawn. So then there's an avenue under Ed Code for districts to work together to do equitable territory transfers. And that's the method as to which we're doing this territory transfer.
Thank you. I don't have anything.
Regarding the changes from the last time, are those all reflected here on page 7? Is that the changes we're
Yes,
talking
I
about?
did look at the agenda posted, and it was the correct version.
Okay.
And I did have one more thing, if I could. I did pull addresses from the school districts and determined that there's no students currently registered at any of the districts that are in the affected territory as of January 30th.
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, I looked at addresses of registered students for the school districts, and there were not any registered in the addresses in the affected areas.
Thank you.
Jim, welcome. Got to get up to speed on this pretty quick, huh?
Well, I do have a comment. My only knowledge is an article I read in the Village News, and it was from the, I don't know whether that's acceptable, but it seemed informative that the existing boundary lines split things illogically between streets and between houses, and that all three school districts involved had to agree on a revision. And the other piece of it was, when you first look at it, you say, oh yeah, this should be all Bonsall, it should be all Fallbrook. But in order to make it all Bonsall, for instance, they would have to give up another part of their territory because it has to balance out equitably. So I assume that whoever did the study thought about this and said, I think this is the best way to do it. And somebody put some work into it. There's been quite a bit of work put into it. So it seemed like they probably came up with the best answer.
Yeah, I think everybody working together, slicing and dicing the options, this one rose to the top as the preferred option.
Ms. Ilsa, you met with Cindy Martin and the
Dr.
superintendent.
Clevenger.
Yeah, can you share with us, like, how did the other superintendents feel about this?
So we are in support of the option that is being presented before you. We looked at a number of, this is option 5, so it wasn't like we had 2 options. We looked at, I believe there were 3 original options. We expressed concern and some wishes that each of the school districts had. And option 5 is the one that is the most equitable for all 3 school districts when it comes both to the finances, as Trustee Christensen mentioned, I believe, regarding the developer fees and student enrollment. So the homes that are slated to have students the age of high school age students were what we as a high school district were looking very closely at. And the reality is that when we review transfer requests, we do not tend to lose students to Bonsall. We have more students coming into our district from Bonsall that we have going out. So again, our needs were a little bit different from the other 2 elementary school districts, but the 3 superintendents felt that this was the best option. At the time, the superintendent at the elementary was Dr. Candy Singh, but our chief business officials were also part of the discussions, and Miss Cindy Martin was involved in the discussions from the very beginning, and she's serving as interim, so she's up to speed on everything.
Any more questions for our presenter? All right. We have a motion and a second. Are there any more questions for discussion from the board? I got an email with a similar concern that we also heard here in public comment. I reached out to one of the board members on the elementary school district, and again, there was no concern there. So really the idea of they should all be coming to Fallbrook or not, I really don't think that's, I think that we're past that. Once Bonsall decided to split off, they're students. We can't say we've got a school they don't, therefore they can't have them. So now if Bonsall can't support those students, they're hopefully going to be coming here and transfer, but we can't, I don't think we can carve out that property and say that's ours. So I guess a long story short, I'm saying in speaking to other people in official capacity, I don't think there's concerns from the other school districts at all. Any other comment or questions? All right, Ms. Bowen, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Ms. Thomas?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Carlampio?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
Aye?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Mr. Jones says aye. Mr. Dooley?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Area 2 is vacant. Thank you very much. Number 9, action item. This is a recommendation to approve contract amendment number 1 with Bernard's Brothers Incorporated, construction management service for the Fallbrook High School CTE and ag projects. Action item will need to start with a motion.
I move that the board approve the recommendation to approve contract amendment 01 to the agreement with Bernard's Bros. Inc. to provide construction management services for the CTE and ag projects as presented.
Mr. Carlampio motions.
I'll have a second.
Mr. Christensen, thank you. Ms. Mefford, can you provide a brief background?
Yes, back in April of 2022, the board approved the selection of Bernard's Brothers as our construction management service provider for our Measure AA bond projects. At that time, we based them on their hourly price. We did not know what the overall price was going to be, and it was originally going to have a job superintendent, the project manager, project engineer, and now that we have gone closer into getting ready to go into DSA, we have our CTE drawings done and our ag building. We know what the costs of these buildings are going to be. Well, the ag one we don't know exactly, but we know a lot closer, and we do know what the CTE building is going to cost. So now we know what the construction manager cost is going to be. It was originally going to be $2 million, but now that we've decided to go lease back, we will have a general contractor that will be on site running the job, so we don't need the job superintendent from Bernard's. So we have negotiated back with them. We've scaled that down to now having the project manager, the engineer, both of those full-time, and then the estimator and the planner are as needed. So this is based on a forecasted amount of hours that they will be working with this project. So in doing that, that amount comes to $1.3 million. It's actually $1,332,432 with an allowance of $724,900 because as we have seen in most of our construction projects, we have a lot of unforeseen conditions. So that way we've added the allowance, so things like that, we don't have to come back to the board with numerous change orders. So we are asking that the contract for Bernard's be approved at the $1.3 million with the $724,000 allowance. Any questions?
questions. Thank you.
And this does include the ag project and the CTE project, where originally we were just looking at CTE.
Just to kind of catch up to speed, when will this project take place and how long will it take and so on?
This is actually it's a 23-month project with a 2-month closeout period. And part of the project is supposed to start taking place after the summer. And it's 23 months, and it's going to build a new CTE project, and it's going to modernize our existing 400 buildings. And in the ag department, that one's not set till 2024 to begin. And we're going to replace 2 new ag classrooms and the restroom. And the restroom is going to be a dual-use restroom, which is going to be used by the football stadium and the ag department. And there's also going to be a new greenhouse.
And will special arrangements need to be made for the students due to the classrooms not being available, or how will that work?
Yes, for the 400s and the CTE, there is a whole rotation schedule of where students will be temporarily housed while those classrooms are being built and modernized. And in the ag department, it's planned to be a summer project, but we do have a contingency in case it runs over like construction usually does.
Okay, any other questions? Ms. Bowen, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Ms. Thomas.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Carlampio?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Jones says aye. Mr. Dooley?
Aye.
Aye. Area 2 is vacant.
President Jones, before moving on, I'd like to inform our student board members that board bylaw states that you may leave at 8 p.m. We are past that time. You are more than welcome to stay, but I just wanted to make you aware that if you needed to leave and work on your homework, you are welcome to do so. Thank you for your attendance today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, number 10, educational services. This is information on a new course, Cooking and Nutrition Fundamentals. Ms. Toon and Dr. Beam.
Good evening. The first class on the agenda is the Cooking and Nutrition Fundamentals. This course was designed and requested by our Bridge program instructors. And for the board's benefit, the Bridge program is designed in our special education department, as the name implies, between the 2 extremes of the students we serve. On one end, we have the mild and moderate students who receive the more traditional diploma curriculum, and then we have the moderate to severe who are in alternative self-contained curriculum. So with the Bridge students, they're not self-contained, they don't have developmental disabilities, but access to the traditional electives and the traditional classes is a little bit out of their reach. So this course was designed by those teachers to provide nutrition and culinary instruction that's modified to a level that they can access it and benefit from it.
Dr. Beam, I just want to credit you for that. It's really great that this class and program is going to be offered for our students.
I'll tell you 100%, this was a teacher-driven initiative.
And this will serve as more electives, especially with the trimester system coming, right?
Precisely, yes.
Due to the trimester, our students have additional elective opportunities, and specifically for our Bridge students, we wanted to make sure that they had some Bridge-specific opportunities within the trimester.
I thought there was already a cooking class. Is there a cooking class this year?
Yes, there is a culinary class in the general education environment, but for example, some of the basic math involved with the recipes and the procedures, doubling and things like that, These are for students whose disabilities make it hard for them to access that without a special educator scaffolding and explaining it.
So my impression is that the cooking class is pretty popular because I've had a couple of exchange students that wanted to take it and they were not able to get in. Is there any chance of expanding it?
So we have a wonderful culinary program, and we have a variety of classes that we offer, but we do have some restrictions in terms of our facilities. And so while we have a wide student interest, we do have one space to a certain extent in which our culinary program can function.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. In fact, Superintendent and I toured that on the 8th graders coming to school, and it's very popular, but it's cramped, and they have to share. You can't just move walls because the cafeteria is right there, so it's definitely a restriction with the facilities there. All right, I'd like to go ahead and move on to the next one, if that's okay with everybody, and that is number 12, which is informational on new course directed studies.
So yes, directed studies is another special education. Oh, sorry.
Hold on, apparently I skipped one. Number 11, Intro to Life Science Essentials. Thank you.
Okay. Again, with the theme of the transition to the trimester, as well as the internal reviews of how our students with disabilities are doing in certain classes, biology has come out as one of the areas of concern. They're freshmen. They're not used to the fact that if you fail a class, you have to take it over, because that doesn't happen in the K-8 environment, as well as some of the basic principles that our students with mild to moderate disabilities have. Among those being the academic language of biology, the basic scientific principles underlying all of the sciences. This is the first science course they take as freshmen in high school, and some of the mathematics involved. So this is an elective designed to pre-teach those fundamental skills before they take the A through G version of biology, with the hopes that we can push as many students with mild to moderate disabilities to be successful in general education biology and not have to take a modified non-A through G class.
Wrong button. Thank you. Any other questions? Now number 12, new course, directed studies.
So this is actually a reboot of the class known as Learning Strategies. Under the semester system, Learning Strategies was designed to be a mild to moderate class to pre-teach and support students in their other classes so they can remain mainstreamed in their general education program. One of the natural tensions in the classroom is how much direct intervention that support teacher can provide versus supporting the work in the other classes. As we transfer to the trimester, what will happen is each individual class will have more time per class and one less class to support. And as we did our research in trimester, some of the more successful programs found a lot of success by developing that intervention component. They'll have more time to focus on reading intervention, math intervention, or study skills intervention with curriculum and support structure to provide those interventions to increase skill level, as well as still have time to do the support function and making sure they're successful in their other classes, case management, and things of that nature.
Really excited about all these new programs that are going to be happening under the SPED department. And I don't want to put you on the spot, so this might be a question for our superintendent and the board. Do we have enough staff to provide support to our students? Since we're adding a lot of new courses, do we have paras that are full-time to support them in all these new classes? Because as great as these programs are, if we don't have the staff to support the kids to be successful in the program, what can we do to change that?
Hiring paraprofessionals has been a struggle since last year. It has been very difficult to fill both our special education paraprofessional vacancies that we have, as well as the English language learner vacancies. But we were aware, moving forward to a trimester system, that it would require additional full-time teachers, not just the support staff. And we do have the budget set aside to be able to hire those people. We continue to look for ways to entice people to apply for the paraprofessional positions, where we used to fly them as Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 11:30, for example. Now we offer more flexible schedules so that if a college student tends to go to class Tuesday, Thursday, and they can only work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we are allowing that. So we continue to look for different ways to entice people to come to Fallbrook. When we look at salaries, paraprofessionals in Fallbrook Union High School District are amongst the most highly paid.
And then if I could add one aspect of the 3 courses that we've presented to you this evening that does impact the staffing. The directed studies is actually a revision of our current learning strategies course. So as we moved into the trimester, we took this opportunity to look at our existing course and really try to ramp it up, make it work better for our students with disabilities. So in that respect, that course is not an additional course, it's a revamp of an existing course.
Yeah, thank you. Again, I teach, sorry, I'm super tired. I teach STEM to our special education students at Mayellis. So knowing that, it wouldn't be successful without our paras. And, just to keep it in mind as board members, in order to make sure that our programs are successful, we got to make sure you have the right equipment and staff there for our kids.
Just one comment for you. It sounds like with this bridge cooking course and the culinary coursework that we have, could be a great opportunity for teachers to be a judge in a taste testing competition in the future.
And board members as well.
That teacher's generosity is known on campus.
All right, thank you very much. Number 13, action item. This is a new course. This is on patient care course. Action item, will need a motion on this, please.
I'll motion for the new course on patient care.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen. Mr. Jones, I will second that. Dr. Luna, can you?
Hello, everyone. I'll make it quick. So I did put a reminder on what a CTE pathway is. It is a sequence of 2 or more courses. So when I say the word concentrator, that's course 1, capstone is course 2. For our district, we changed it to be 2 courses to complete a pathway. 1, because of access. 2, it actually will help with our data, and introductory courses isn't required for pathways. And also, many of these pathways are designed to connect them to post-secondary programs. We're working on trying to bring in those credentials with industry and future career paths as well. So from the last time I visited, the course that we're actually trying to pass is Health Careers in the Community, and we are modeling after Grossmont Union High School District. If you notice on the information, it would be a 2-trimester course. It's designed to introduce the students to medical terminology, principles, hands-on field experience, really just focusing on the healthcare piece and mental health. It's very broad, but it's meant to bring in students that are still unsure of kind of where they want to go, and emphasizing very ethical, legal considerations, principles of body mechanics, CPR, first aid, structure and function of the human body, and again, all the realms of patient care. So with this course, the goal is for at least when they finish the first course that the kids do come out CPR and first aid certified, and that'll be something that we'll work on with the teacher that we hire. It will also expose the kids to all the other fields that they had interest when we did this survey. With what we're asking is that you approve the course. This will be course 1 of the pathway. As we move forward and grow the program, there are 2 other options for the final course, course 2. So it would either be a first responder medical assistant course or sports medicine. It could also be a combination, but the idea is to expose the kids to a patient care pathway. Note that it doesn't, they wouldn't be certified to be EMTs or going to EMR, but we would be connecting them to post-secondary programs, and that's where connecting with Palomar, Maricosta, we'll be reaching out to them as we grow the actual pathway. Any questions?
Just want to thank you for staying this late. Thank y'all for staying this late.
Question? It seems like, I understand one of the advantages of the trimester system is you can offer more courses. But it seems like this particular one maybe is a different skill set. Will you need to add to staff to support these new courses, or?
Yes, we would need to hire a teacher to actually cover this course, and they need to have a CT certificate and experience within the same patient care health realm to teach the course.
Elisa, is there a plan to ensure that we have the right staff for all these courses that we're adding?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Luna.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Student representatives are not here. Mr. Carlampia?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Jones, I say aye. Mr. Dooley?
Aye.
Aye. Area 2 is vacant. Consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered by the Board of Trustees to be routine and will be enacted in one action. There is usually no discussion on these items prior to the time of the Board of Trustee votes on the motion, unless members of the board request specific items to be discussed or deleted from the consent agenda. Action item. Can we get a motion on the consent agenda?
I will motion that the board approve as presented the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen. Jones, I will second that. Any discussion? All right, call for the vote. Student representatives are not here. Mr. Carlampia?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
Aye. Jones says aye. Mr. Dooley?
Aye.
Aye. Area 2 is vacant. Thank you. We are now going to go to closed session. Topics in closed session could include public employee discipline, dismissal, and release, Government Section Code 54957, conference with legal counsel pending litigation, Government Section Code 54956.9D1, claim number 2023-1012, conference with legal counsel anticipating litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Section Code 54956.9D2, conference with labor negotiators, negotiations, Government Section Code 54957.6, district negotiator Ilza Garza Gonzalez, superintendent, employee organizations, FHSTA and SEIU, and unrepresented employees, classified management, certified management, and confidential employees. Next, student expulsion case number 02F 2223, and finally, settlement agreement OAH case number 2023-010368. Opportunity for members of the public to address the board on any items discussed in this agenda for closed session would be now. Opportunity was granted earlier for open session. Government Section Code 54954.3. Do we have any public verbal comments on closed session agenda?
We do not.
All right, we'll go to closed session. Okay, adjourning from closed session at 9:26. Again, we're still at the Bob Burton Performing Arts Center, Fallbrook High School, 2400 South Stage. Reconvene from 9:26, yes. Report from closed session. Topic A, public dismissal, discipline, dismissal, and reliefs, Government Section Code 54957, nothing to report. B, conference with legal counsel pending litigation, Government Section Code 54956.9D1, claim number 2223-1012. And the case number 2223-1012, the board voted to deny claim number 2223-1012 by a vote of 4-0. Third one, C, conference with legal counsel anticipating litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Section Code 54956.9D2, nothing to report. Conference with labor negotiators, Government Section Code 54957.6, District Negotiator Ilsa Garza Gonzalez, Superintendent, Employee Organizations FHSTA and SEIU, and unrepresented employees, classified management, certified management, and confidential employees, nothing to report. Student expulsion case 02F2223, nothing to report. Section F, settlement case OAH, case number 2023-010368. In a 4-0 vote, the board voted to accept the settlement case OAH 2023-010368. What else? Education service number 6, number 23, student expulsion. This is an action item, so we'll need a motion, please. This is in regards, go ahead. Motion and a second.
I'll motion that the board approve the student expulsion case 02F2223 as presented in closed session.
I second.
Christensen and Carlampio, board members. Mr. Carlampio, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Christensen, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Jones vote yes. Mr. Dooley?
Aye.
Aye. Area 2 is vacant. Organizational matters. This is the appropriate place in the agenda for members of the board to request the superintendent provide further information regarding items discussed at this meeting and or request the new items of business be placed on future agendas. Are there any organizational matters?
I would just request, based on the conversations from the public today, I know we've kind of discussed some of the books to be reviewed. Also, the committee that reviewed the specific book that was mentioned, if that's something that can be given to the board to review, as well as
So our board policy states that the decision by the superintendent or the committee can be appealed to the board. Late Friday, I did receive the official appeal to the board. I will work with President Jones to agendize that, being that we have a new board member that joined us today. We do have to give him enough time to read the materials. So again, I will continue to work with President Jones to make sure that that is agendized and comes before the board.
Any other organizational matters? Date and time of our next meeting. The next regular meeting of the Board of Trustees will be held Tuesday, February 28th, 2023 at 5:30 here at the Bob Burton Performing Arts Center. Adjournment. There being no further business before the board, the regular board meeting for February 13th, 2023 was adjourned at 9:31 by President Jones.